obviously the internet will be up and down. We are used to this. It is COVID-19. It is the new normal. So we understand that we have to Zoom or do Teams and so on. So we'll just take it as it comes. But I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. As today's day 151 of lockdown in South Africa. It's been challenging. It's been different. And, we are now going into the hotter months. So we're hoping to see the numbers of COVID-19 going down, and hopefully the economy will open up again, and we'll see how South Africa copes with the opening up of the economy.
Right, so you mentioned something there that I think a lot of people have been speculating about. Is there actually a correlation between the hit and the spread of this disease that has found us prisoners for all this time?
Well, certainly, if the other countries that suffered immensely during COVID-19, if their stats is anything to go by, the cold was when they saw, their worst cases, their peaks. And then as the months got warmer, they saw their numbers coming down. So there is a relationship, it seems, between cold weather and COVID-19. But South Africa is now level 2, so more of the economy has opened up. But the important thing is just to remember that even though we are now in level 2, it's important for people to still stick to the COVID-19 precautions. So for us, it's always wearing a face mask in the public. It's to continue maintaining social distancing. So making sure that you're at least 1.5 meters apart from other people, and then we continue to do hand washing. And of course, in the absence of hand washing, we continue to do hand sanitizing. And it's been hard because we're not used to this. We're very social beings. We're used to seeing our friends and family, hugging and so on. But COVID-19 has come with all these changes, and it's teamwork, right? No one is happy about the circumstances, but it's a global pandemic, and each and every one of us has to play their role in ensuring that we flatten the curve. So yeah, that's where we are, especially in South Africa.
Talking about flattening the curve, you find yourself, of course, in the medical profession for as many years as you have. You are a radio show host. You're telling me now that you're hosting it from your house. You are a mother. You're a wife. You wear like so many hats. Where do you find the time to do all these things? And how is it even possible?
You know what, Ronald? I'm a multitasker. I'm fortunate in that I don't need as much sleep as other people. So, I probably sleep about 4 to 5 hours a night, and then I'm awake doing stuff. I've also changed my professional life. I had a mental breakdown in 2013, in April 2013. And a lot of it, it was postpartum depression. It was also trying to do everything and trying to be everything to everybody. And after my breakdown, I had to change my life. And so I've adapted my practice so that I don't see so many patients in a day. At the moment, I'm working from home completely. So I'm doing lots of online telemedicine consultations. So that's why I'm able to fit in all these other things. And the reason why I'm working from home is primarily because we know that COVID-19 cases, the mortality rate amongst obese people is very high, right? And obesity is something that we don't always speak about in a way that is constructive, right? Very sensitive topic. And many of us who grew up obese know that whenever I just pointed out Kutitiri obese, you're hurt because it's coming from family members who are mocking you, or from friends who mean well, but the words don't always land in a nice way. But I was very cognizant of the stats, and I realized, in India, if I get COVID-19, I might not make it. So rather I stay at home and protect my family, protect myself until further notice. So I've been able to adapt. So I'm very good with technology. I've been able to adapt very quickly to consulting online. And not all doctors have been able to do that. So I think there's learning curves for everybody in every field. COVID-19 has taught us a lot of lessons, a lot of like just basic human lessons, right? But also from a work point of view, a lot of us have had our eyes opened about the fact that you don't have to be in an office to get work done. And it's going to be interesting to see how organizations and just everyone pivots after this. If no one comes out of this a different person and realizing how important technology is, it'll be a great loss.
And I think you mentioned something very important there about the breakdown that you had. And I think it's something that potentially would have been a life-changing, life-transformational moment for you personally. How important was having family around you how did that help at all in trying to chart your new course or new direction of your life as it is now?
Well, it was hard for my mom. She was very ashamed of the fact that her daughter had been admitted into a mental hospital with depression. So, Black parents don't really understand mental illness. It's still something that we're navigating. And so Mama was not very happy about it. She didn't want me to tell anybody. So it was a secret for the longest time. But then she passed away, 7 weeks after I was admitted. And it was only in 2014 that I was able to open up and then start sharing my journey with the world. And this was after Robin Williams, the comedian, had died by suicide.
Yeah.
But the first person I actually spoke to before I decided to share my story publicly was my father. My father is in Zimbabwe. My parents divorced when I was very young. But I felt that, because we had lied to my dad about my admission, I felt I owed him the truth. I didn't want him to find out from newspapers or from the internet, Kuti, his daughter had been admitted in depression. So I spoke to my father. He was very understanding. And then from there, I was then able to share my story. My husband was he was so strong throughout the whole thing because he lives with me, right? So he had seen me changing. I changed in front of his eyes, and he saw me withering away and just becoming a shadow of who I am. And whenever people ask him, how was it living with Sindi during those times? He always says that she was dead. She was physically there, but Mukati, emotionally, she was non-existent. So they could see me, they could see I was alive, but in terms of taking part in day-to-day activities, in terms of being a wife or a mom, I was completely absent. And I was very lucky that my cousin moved in with us. So my cousin, for the better part of 2 years, she ran my household because there were days when I'd wake up and I just could not do anything, Saka, if anyone feels good, they may have depression or any mental health issues, please get professional help. I'm a born-again Christian, and, my mom's and my aunt's initial reactions was to pray and anoint me with the holy oil and all those things. And those things are fantastic. There's nothing wrong with anointing people and praying for them. But there comes a time when you need professional input. And I think this is where Isusu as Van Watema, we struggle with that step. Okay, this is beyond us. Let's now take it a step further. So, yeah.
And I think it's important that you mention that whole thing. We don't really see depression as a clinical issue. Potentially tend to wakaroiwa or kuzvitisa or something along those lines, where we don't put the seriousness that's required to that. And I think I'm glad you touched on the issue of and the relationship that you had with your dad. The fact that you actually grew up without him for pretty much most of your life because of the divorce and everything. And how would you characterize your relationship with him as you were growing up, and potentially at that time as well when you had to speak to him about these truths?
So after my mom passed away, I realized, Kuti, I needed to just strengthen our relationship. I'd already started working on it. There's a lot of forgiveness that had to happen. And my forgiving of my father actually came about because of my children, right? So during my depression, I realized that there were so many occasions when I let my kids down. So I promised to do something, and then when I wake up in the morning, I don't feel like doing it anymore. So I once heard them gossiping about me, and my daughter was telling my son, Kuti, if you ask Mama for something, it's most likely that she won't do it. So don't bother asking. And I realized how unreliable I'd become in my children's lives. And so I had to speak to them about that. Their father spoke to them, and I had to ask their forgiveness and so on. And because of that whole experience, I was able to then go back and forgive my father. When I look back, my dad had married again. He had a whole new family. I was an only child with my mom. And I think, divorce is never easy for anybody. And my mom left as soon as she can, for whatever her reasons were. And so she was then a South African in a foreign country, which is Zimbabwe. And all the labels of being a single parent. I mean, Zimbabwe is a very patriarchal country. Marriage is held in high esteem. So for you to be divorced and to be single with a child is not something that people, it's kind of frowned upon. And so we struggled a lot, and my father is well off, for those that know him, he's well off. He could afford everything. But him and my mom went through a bit of issues. So because of that, I suffered in the middle of all of this. And so I had to forgive him. My relationship with him was characterized by Zotini, like putting your best foot forward. So I'd see my dad when he came to read my school reports, came to visit once in a while. And I remember that I always had it at the back of my mind, Kuti, because I don't see this man often. When he does come to visit, or when I do see him, I must be on my best behavior. And that's very unhealthy because I never got to express how I feel about certain things, you know. And so you grow up always putting your best foot forward, trying not to disappoint this person. But unfortunately, I did disappoint him. There's so many things that happened that did. I mean, I failed my A levels. I had to repeat Kuspesis College, and those things did disappoint him. And but eventually, I achieved all my dreams. And you know, we had a chance of sitting down, having an open and honest conversation about everything that had transpired. But this was much later on when I was older, and I was able to forgive him. And now we're at the stage where we speak almost, well, certainly on email, we speak almost every day. The few times that I do phone him, he even says, "I love you" at the end of the conversations. But that's been a journey. And I know, Kuti, for Rajinji, dads, especially in the Zimbabwean context, dads are this mythical figure. You know, you have a father, and you know what's in the lounge, couldn't chair Didi, and there's daddy's plate and daddy's cup, and like your dad is a mythical figure. You don't ask him any questions. He provides the money. You can't argue with him about anything. If he says jump, you must ask how high. But those times are changing, right? Challenging for them, right? And challenging for us as well, that we have voices and our fathers have to hear us out. And it's important for our dads to hear us out. It's important for them to know, Kuti, we're not always happy about things that they did in the past. But forgiveness is essential because, God's currency for us as human beings is forgiveness. You can't carry a grudge in your heart for the rest of your life. It's like cancer. It eats away at you. So forgiveness is so, so important. And I think, just my last point before we carry on is that I'm married to a man that's an excellent father. So Marinus is Afrikaans. He grew up very differently from me. He grew up with a father in the house, and he has now shown me what it is to be a dad. So I'll come home, or I'll come home and find my kids on the couch, sitting on my husband, like sitting on him, and they're all watching a movie on Netflix. And I'm like, hey, Nina, get off, like sit on your own chairs and let your dad sit on his own. And my husband's like, no, Cindy, leave the kids. They want to sit on me. It's okay. Like, I mean, the one time I came and I found my daughter and my son on his shoulders on the couch. And because I hadn't experienced that, I didn't understand, Uguti, that's just part of a dad. Like, dads are jumping castles, If the kids want to jump on their dad, let them jump on their dad. And he wants to involve them in everything. Like, if I get a wedding invite, he'll ask me, can we take the children? And I'm like, no, why should we take the kids? And he says, no, but I want my kids to be there. So many times when we get invites to parties or weddings, he always wants to know if his kids can come. And for me, it was such an eye-opener, Kuti. Oh my gosh, so this man wants to involve his children in every aspect of his life. And it's such a foreign thing to me. Because as I said, dads are these mythical figures, you don't just speak anyhow to your father. You can't go anywhere with your dad. But now I know, Kuti, actually, dads want to spend time with their kids. So it's been a very interesting journey of forgiveness, journey of learning, and certainly a journey of enlightenment.
And I'm glad you kind of touch on the issue that, the old style dads, as it were, with their cup and their certain plate and the piece of chicken that they have to get. And all those things, and you are seeing this model, this new model that your husband is showing you, based obviously on what he saw growing up and modeling that as well to you, of how good fatherhood should look like. I'm looking at all of that and thinking, did that not create some sort of emotional turmoil in you as you are doing this reconciliation project with your dad and trying to find this whole forgiveness thing to say, I didn't get all those things, but either way, I'm still willing to let it go and forgive you and love you. Because I ask this because, and like you said, a lot of people have this issue. I also had pretty much a similar story to yours. I think we talked about it the time you interviewed me on your radio station, to say my mom divorced with my dad as well when they were young. And I grew up a lot, for the most part of my life, very angry at my dad, and it took a sitting down session for me to be able to actually forgive him. And little did I know, of course, that he was going to be in a car accident and die in 2 weeks' time. So that really shifted my view on how I view these issues. And now looking at all of that in the background that you've kind of gotten in all the conversations that you've had, how difficult was it for you to be able to get to the point of saying, you know what, I need to have this conversation with my dad and forgive him for my children's sake and obviously for your sake as well?
It was hard. It was hard, Ronald, because, obviously, my dad had another family, right? And so there's a lot of comparison, right? So you look at how his family was doing and how they were fine, and then I looked at how I struggled with my mom, and so obviously there's a bit of resentment around that. Kuti, I just wish I'd done a little bit more, just so at least Mama doesn't struggle financially. But the forgiveness, really, the basis of my forgiveness was my children forgiving me for how I had let them down when I was at the worst of my mental illness. So just having my daughter saying, "No, Mom, it's fine. We forgive you. Papa explained to us why you're like this. We forgive you." It struck a chord in my heart. So even if I didn't have to say so many words to my father, just releasing him, and saying, God, I release this man. I understand why he was the way that he was. I'm not going to resent him any longer. Just that release in my spirit brought about a lot of change in my life. And I think it's important for me to say this, Kuti. Sometimes forgiveness, actually, doesn't mean, Kuti, you have to physically say the words to the person, because the person might not be alive anymore, or the person might be far away from you. But in your spirit, you need to do it. Because as I said, God's currency is forgiveness. And all of us are going to die one day. I'm a born-again Christian. I know, Kuti, you're going to stand before the Lord and explain certain of our behaviors. Your father won't be there. Right? You can't turn around and say, Mwari, I didn't forgive because he did whatever. It'll just be you and God standing there together. So do it for your spirit. Release for your spirit. And this is really what I did. And I've been very happy since then. Do I envy my kids for having a great dad? I don't think I do. I think I'm just happy for them, Kuti. They're growing up with a great father. They understand, what fathers and mommies should do. And I'm hoping, Kuti, when they grow up as well, they'll also do the same thing for their children.
Right, and I think in a context that we grow in currently, it's almost on an everyday basis that we open the news channel, we open a newspaper, and we get stuff I think is connected to a bit of bitterness and lack of modeling and anger in men that ends up leading them, if we can put it like that, to assault and even end up killing, women out there. Gender-based violence is so it's so predominant right now. I don't even know where to start. There's a hashtag almost every second day, and I've noticed every second. And I've noticed that you have this DM to timeline thing that you have on Twitter. Hey, where do you get the time to tweet, Doctor? You are so busy, but I see you tweet like 1,000 tweets a day.
Well, remember, Ronald, I don't sleep much. As I said, I sleep about 4 hours a day. So when you guys are sleeping, I'm awake doing all of these things, right? Because I must do something. I can't wake up my family. And so I wake up and I do all of that stuff. But You're right about gender-based violence, Kuti. And I think social media has brought it to the fore.
Yeah.
So the one thing people think, Kuti, it wasn't, gender-based violence is more prominent now. It's always been there. It's that social media is bringing these things to the surface, and we have to deal with it. And when I say we, I actually mean varume. Men need to sit down and have these discussions with each other, right? We can get the hashtags going, right? We can get the hashtags going, but Imini varume need to sit down together and just discuss all of these things and say to each other, Kuti, guys, this is not how you treat women. It doesn't matter how angry you are. Like, you can come up with every justification under the sun for your behavior. There is no justification for that kind of behavior. And so I feel, Kuti, there aren't enough men. Guys, behavior right? Because all of us, you guys all know someone who's engaged in gender-based violence. Because remember, gender-based violence goes beyond, beating someone up. It's financial abuse, emotional abuse. It covers the whole spectrum, right? So you guys need to sit down with each other and point out what the issues are. Isusuka, what can we do? We can talk, we can be activists, we can do so much. But imimi, talking to each other, calling each other out. If a friend of yours does something that is inappropriate, if you don't address the issue, and really follow on with the relevant like, make the consequences felt. Who are we to try and do anything? And I really mean it. If you know that your friend is violent towards their partner, right? Say something. You might lose that friend, but you know what? You've planted the seed, Kuti, listen, this kind of behavior I won't tolerate. If you keep on doing this, I am going to stop being your friend. Pain is the greatest motivator of change. But I feel, Kuti, Tina, as women, the burden is on us to try and change you guys when you guys aren't talking to each other. It's not right and it's not fair.
And we find this link, I think, on a psychological basis anyway, mostly getting to how men have been conditioned and how they've grown up and the type of upbringing they've received and the kind of modeling. And it's a whole concoction really of issues and matters and factors that make us, I would say us and include myself as men, to become that monster that you've just described there. And obviously, like you say, there's conversations that need to take place. And I'm hoping these live chats, for example, go in some way to try and bring the issue to the fore first and foremost, but also to try and bring suggestive solutions on how we can actually really fix this thing going forward. Because talking about it and identifying is one thing, but actually changing behavior and having those kind of conversations that are really suggestive of change, then is where I really want to find myself. Now, I know you are married now. You've got 2 kids, 1 daughter, 1 son, beautiful caramellos, you call them. I want to find out what is the thing that you are potentially or thinking about teaching your kids so that they don't find themselves either being a perpetrator or be a victim of the violence that we kind of see. What are the practical steps that at home that are people that are listening to this video can also say, I can try and teach my kids based on what I've heard from the professional who's Dr. Sindi? What would you say about that?
So I'm so glad you answered that question. So we've already had the conversation with our kids about consent. Right, so we've had the conversation about sex and sexual intercourse and so on. We've spoken about consent. My kids know that no is a full sentence. If someone says no, right, you need to respect that and you need to stop whatever it is that you're doing. We've also spoken about the law, right, and certainly from my part, I've said to both of my kids that if someone was to come to our house and say, Wana, when you did A, B, C, D, and we've brought the police and your child must get arrested, believe you me, I am letting my child get arrested, right? We'll let the law take its course. We'll see you at the police station and we'll see how everything goes. But I'm not going to defend any of my kids, right? If the law is involved, right? And I say this because so many times when a case of gender-based violence has surfaced or sexual assault and so on, people are so quick to defend the person that's been accused. And it just baffles my mind, to people, and maybe it's because I'm a medical doctor, Ronald. Maybe it's because I understand. I've been on the side of the other side of the fence where I must fill out forms of a person that's been violated or sexually assaulted, and I know how much energy it takes to even report a case. Right? To even go to a doctor, get that examination done, my paper acho, my purisa, it's such a draining process. So if someone says, Kuti, Munuyu, Akanjirowa or Munuyu did sexual assault against me, and it happens to be my child, I'm letting the law take its course. Right? We'll see you at the cells, we'll bring you food and whatever it is, but let the law take its course. So my kids know that. It's crystal clear to them, Kuti, if you're in trouble, we're not going to defend you, we'll let the law take its course. And the last thing that we've been trying to instill in our kids is that they just need to respect human beings, right? Every person on this earth has a right to be alive, right? So we need to respect human beings. Every human being deserves to be here, right? Doesn't matter what their social standing is or what their background is. You need to respect everyone just because they are a human being. And so my kids, they seem to get it. I think they understand it. And every so often we'll have the discussion again, especially when things come up, especially when things are trending on social media. We'll speak about the things and make sure that they understand, because every human being deserves to be on this earth. There's no person who's better than the other. In God's eyes, we are all the same. So you respect every human being that you come across. And I'm hoping those principles will be instilled in them. And I think we're doing a great job. But I'm not going to mollycoddle any of my kids. The law is the law. And if someone's accused, you let the law take its course. And Suzobona Pambili, when you get to court, we'll figure it all out. But I'm not going to do what most people do, which is to jump to a person's defense and say, oh no, Ronald would never do that. You don't know that, right? Yeah. You don't know what Ronald would do or not do, because you're not always with Ronald. So sure. I don't owe any person the benefit of the doubt. I'm very clear about that. I don't owe any man the benefit of the doubt. And I think this is what kills my cases, Aya, is that Munakati, Ronald, he'd never. The person that's been violated starts thinking, oh no, everyone's against me, and they drop the cases. And that's what happens. Most of these cases don't even make it to court because Ronald, Ronald is so respectable. He'd never. We don't know that. You're not there with them all the time. So don't defend what you don't know. Be very, very careful about that. So our kids are very clear about that, Ronald, because especially as a medical practitioner, is that as I said, my cases, Ayaka, they get reported, but somewhere along the line, there's lots of doubt that's being sowed into the mind of the person that's reporting. And then what happens? You get tired, the system is working against you, and you eventually drop the charges. And it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable for that to happen. And Munwajo, who has had the charges dropped, guess what's going to happen? They're going to do it again, Ronald, because in their mind, they got away with it. So why not do it again? And they will do it again and again and again.
And I know you as a medical doctor, you kind of managed to do the delineation thing between your patient and obviously your emotions as a human being, so that when they pass away, for example, it doesn't really hit you that much because you've kind of put that distance between you and them. Now, when it comes to emotional issues such as this, you've done the test, you've done the swabs, you've done all of these things, and you've kind of heard their stories. Do you apply pretty much the same kind of principle to just say, it's a patient, or is it something that actually weighs you heavily when you go home to think, but how can somebody do that?
I was telling my psychologist, Kuti, if there's one thing I wish I had, I wish I could delineate like that. I really do. I actually can't. So I take stuff home, I cry, it weighs down on me, but it's really, God gets me through most of these things. God is just always there to just to help me work through it. But it's very difficult to certainly for me, I struggle to delineate because I'm very emotional. I'm an empath. I feel for patients. And right, Sasha. Some of the stories, you just ask Putimwari, like, why? Why would anybody be born into this world to go through something like this? Some of the things that we hear as doctors, it's very painful. But in any, I have God, and God helps me through the worst of the cases.
Yeah, and I think just as a second final question, you touched on something again about families sometimes being the people that actually prevent justice from taking its course because obviously we've taken the side, no, this guy would never do that, not my son, not my uncle, etc. What do you think we should do? Is it something that perhaps you think is informed from a cultural perspective that family has to just gather around and then close each other's gaps? Or is it something that you think needs a revolution culturally so to say, guys, when somebody has messed up, as you've taught your kids, I will put you in jail myself?
Yeah, we need that revolution, Ronald, because so I'll speak about a very painful example, right? And let's speak about when a child has been sexually assaulted, right? There's an adult in the family, because most children are sexually assaulted by an adult that they know. So now there's this uncle that's sexually assaulting these young girls, and the story surfaces, and the family wants to sweep it under the carpet because of shame, right? What you do is that that person will continue to do that. There's no room in society for pedophiles. Pedophiles belong behind bars because the majority of them, you cannot rehabilitate them, right? But because sisaba that, oh my gosh, then the story is going to be in the papers and everyone's going to find out, and what are people going to say? The elders tend to do what they did with their own shame, which is to sweep it under the carpet. So Isusu, as the younger generation, and certainly with our children, we need to instill that culture. Because if something happens and it's really bad, we are going to speak about it and we're going to let the law take its course. If it means hukama unopera, right? If it means that this is how families break apart, then so be it. But the perpetrator must face the law. And I don't know, Ronald, I don't know how we can all work together to ensure that it happens, because the damage that is done to the children, like, as I said, it's only doctors and psychologists and social workers who really understand the damage that's inflicted in a person's life if they've been violated and the people that they trust don't allow the law to take its course, right? If your mother turns around and says, I know that your uncle sexually assaulted you, but for the sake of the family, we're going to keep this under wraps. The damage is lifelong, because if you can't trust your own mom to protect you, who else can you trust in clubbing? What must happen, you know? So I'm really hoping, Kuti, as the years go by, our attitude towards such is going to change, and there'll be members of families who can call a spade and let things be dealt with in the manner in which they're meant to be dealt with.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think we need to hear that. I think finally, the question I always ask my guests, to imagine they had a stage, or potentially this video, this broadcast was being watched by everyone in the world at the very same time. If you had a unique message that you'd want to tell everyone in the world right now, what would that be, Dr. Sim?
Oh, kindness is everything. Guys, each and every one of us is carrying a cross of some sort, right? I don't know a person that isn't dealing with something. So just be kind. A simple thing like, hi, how are you? Or, oh, hi, you look great today. Oh, I love your new hairstyle. Just be kind, because you don't know what a person is going through, right? So smile more and be nice to everybody. And as I said, Tina, as doctors, we know, because people come into our consulting rooms and they share stuff with us that they'd never share with anyone else on the earth. Doctors are like therapists. We hear it all. So my thing is, be kind. You have no idea what the next person is going through, and kindness goes a long way.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate the time. Thank you for coming and featuring today, and all the wisdom that you've given. I really hope it's life transformational out there, because you see, the whole point of this is not just to have fun, but to really try and challenge thoughts and mindsets out there, and hopefully make a difference in society. So thank you, Dr. Sindi. I suppose we'll be speaking again soon, but otherwise, appreciate your time. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ronald, and take care.
And for everybody else that's watching, that's a wrap from us. Until next time, we'll see you again on live chats on Monday. It's an adios, goodbye, and later it is.